Thank you, and good evening, Madam President. I want to preface my remarks by offering my condolences once again to the families of the Newtown victims, and not only to the families of the Newtown victims, but to the victims of everyone who suffered a needless loss to gun violence in our big cities, which we hear about almost on a weekly basis. I'd also like to offer my thanks to all the members of the different task forces, the working groups. I think they carried out their duties with dignity. Countless hours listening to testimony from everybody that came to Hartford and down in the town of Newtown. I'd also like to offer thanks to the leaders and the time that they put in negotiating the final aspects of the bill. It certainly was a struggle to try to achieve balance. And the balance I talk about is the balance of making sure that we do something productive in the state of Connecticut while guarding the rights of others. I'd also like to thank the manufacturers and the citizens who took days off from work to come up and testify numerous times. Imagine it's not something to gloat about. What did you do on vacation? Well, I spent my day at the state capitol 2 and 3 times testifying in front of a legislative panel. I myself served on 2 of the working groups, school safety and gun violence. I also sat through hearings on the Public Safety Committee. But I didn't think that was enough because I didn't see a lot of my constituents here. So I held my own gun hearing in my district. It went for 6 hours. And I sat across the table from my constituents, giving them the opportunity to speak to me and speak their mind. I also received over 7,000 emails since December 15th on this topic from in-state residents. And over the past 2 days, over 100 phone calls. But all of this is in the name of good government, I would say. But what I find to be distasteful are the comments of folks that say, ignore the people on the fringe. We're saying to ignore the people that we were chosen to represent here in Hartford. And I don't believe that's right. All they're asking at times is to see and read the bill. And I ask you, is that too much to ask for? I know we can say we've had a public hearing on different parts of the bill and it's been in through different committees. But the sum of the parts don't necessarily mean the whole of the bill. It could be taken out in a different context. So I thought, personally, that Senate Bill 1160 should have been out there for the public to read in its entirety and offer comments to. I wouldn't have minded another 7,000 emails, honestly. But when I read through the bill, and I did read the bill, I thought the root cause was barely mentioned, and that was mental health. Yes, we formed a task force to look at some case management of up to 100 people in probation, and we created a consultation and care coordination program, but we didn't get to the 2 words that I felt were so prevalent in all the hearings, which was access and control. From speaker to expert to novice, it was all about access and control. We did a couple access and control items. We created a safe storage provision in the bill, and we offered a 5-year look back for mental health illness, but that's it. I wish we could have done something on psychotropic drugs. I wish we could have done something to work with the task force, with our federal legislative delegation, to loosen up the HIPAA regulations so our agencies can talk to each other. So if somebody's aware of something that's happening, they have the ability to communicate that. As I said, I sat down face to face with my constituents for over 6 hours, and as they came up to the table, they said, I want you to oppose everything. Some people did. And I said, well, let's wait a minute. Let's talk about some of the things just opposing everything. Do you support universal background checks? Well, yes, I do. What about if we created the provision that's in the bill that says you have to show an identification to buy ammunition? Because what I'm told, the big city mayors that came up said that's the problem in their inner cities. They buy the guns on the black market, but they don't necessarily get the ammunition. So if we can control the flow of the ammunition, maybe we can prevent some of the inner city deaths. And as I explained myself, they said, well, I guess I can support that too. And then we were going down through the items, and they said, well, we can support that. So I said, there is common ground, but we just need to give them the opportunity to have that conversation. And then somebody said to me something that I hadn't thought of from that perspective before. It was about technology. They said, Kevin, how many people do you know use wooden golf clubs on the golf course anymore? They're aluminum. How many people use a wooden tennis racket? Well, that was graphite. How many people ski with wooden water skis? Those are fiberglass. And then I said, well, obviously the next question would be, well, those don't kill people. And they said, Kevin, automobiles, they used to, when they first were created, they used to run 10 miles an hour. Now they can go 150 miles an hour. And drugs, years ago, it was marijuana, but now it's crack cocaine. And yes, even guns have evolved with technology, from the single-shot black powder musket to today's modern sporting rifle. It changes so quickly. When I started in law enforcement 28 years ago, I carried a 6-shot revolver with double speed loaders. People probably don't even know what a double speed loader is. And when I retired, I was carrying a .40 caliber semi-automatic Smith & Wesson. Nobody can foresee the future because we don't know where technology is going to bring us in 10 to 15 years from now. But this bill attempts to address that through cosmetic limitations. And I ask you, if you happen to put makeup on, when you look in the mirror, you begin the makeup process, you know what it does? It changes your appearance. But it does not change who you are. And that's what we're attempting to do here with the limiting of the cosmetic features on these weapons. If you use the same caliber bullet, you'll have the same velocity and the same penetration. The only thing you're changing is what it looks like and how you hold it. The bill further attempts to limit gun ownership. And I say to you that your actions and the actions of the media have caused gun ownership to increase. How often do we see on the 6 o'clock news lines at the gun stores and the retail outlets and the empty spaces on the shelf? That's as a direct cause of the action of this legislature. During my hearing I had in my district, I had a manufacturer come up to me and said, you know what, Kevin? He goes, I manufacture the springs in these magazines. I've sold more springs in the past 4 months than I have in the past 4 years. Because there's a buying spree because people are afraid. The lines are being created by law-abiding citizens because criminals don't wait in lines, nor do they follow the law. I asked the tough questions of both the opponents and the proponents during the public hearings to see if what we did would have any impact. And sadly, both sides agreed that it won't. Ownership without banning allows the magazines to stay in the population. And requiring only 10 rounds in a 30-round magazine focuses on law-abiding citizens and something that we all know a criminal will never, ever follow. In closing, there are a lot of great things in the bill. And I wish I could be casting a yes vote today. And it's the two issues in the bill that I have difficulty with. And those were the two issues that took the longest time, I believe, although I was not in the room, that caused the negotiations to get us to where they are today. And that is the assault weapon expansion and the high-capacity magazine. And during my time in my hearings, people would come up to me and say, where do you stand on the Second Amendment? And I said, well, what do you mean? And more people carried around a pocketbook of the Constitution. They'd open a page, and they'd start reading the Second Amendment. My comment to them were, don't tell me something from 1791. Look to the most recent case in 2008 in the Hella versus D.C. case. Because it was the United States Supreme Court that analyzed the Second Amendment and offered an opinion. And in their opinion, they said that the government has the right to say who can own guns, where they can carry them, and what types of guns can they carry. So that had me thinking, well, maybe I will be supporting this bill because if that's the most recent ruling, it's not an infringement upon the Second Amendment rights of our citizens that is so profoundly spoken. But then I started doing a little research. And I found out that as recent as last Friday, there's over 1.28 million guns registered in the state of Connecticut. And those are only the number of guns that are registered. That there are many, many long guns that were purchased that never had to be registered. So I think it would be fair to say that it would probably be closer to 2 million. And somewhere during the hours and hours of testimony, I heard that there were 154,000 AR-15s. So I thought to myself, if there's 154,000 AR-15s registered in the state of Connecticut, maybe 5%, how does that dovetail into what was ruled in the Heller versus DC case? Now, I told you they said they can state who has them, where they have them, and what types. But it went on further to say the who are the folks that are convicted felons and folks with mental illness. The where, government has a right to create gun-free zones in our schools and in our municipal buildings. And on the what types, government has the right to ban guns that are not in common use at that time. That's where my difficulties lay. Is 5% considered common use at that time? I probably could go either way on that one. But the one part that I could not overcome was the high-capacity magazines. Because I know that almost every handgun and every long gun that can be sold has a magazine capacity greater than 10. And it has been around a long, long time. Therefore, that I consider to be in common use. And I believe by us passing this bill today, we are creating a direct violation of the Constitution. It was said that the tree of liberty shall be pruned at times to make it stronger. But I say to you that once you start pruning the roots of the tree of liberty will suffer a withering death. Thank you.
Thank you.